there's all those words describing Gen Zs, the most open generation, they're creative, they're looking for goodness, but also they are overwhelmed and flaky at the same time. And I think part of that flakiness is the fact that people are just overwhelmed a lot of times, and there's nobody who will personally accompany them. And I think your technique of kind of saying, you have the right skills, but we will not just tell you that, and smile and say, off you go, but I will accompany you.
Welcome to Magnified Ministry Podcast, the podcast dedicated to inspiring, encouraging, and equipping parish leaders to build thriving missionary communities in today's rapidly changing world. This is the Magnified Ministry Podcast.
Welcome back to Magnified Ministry Podcast, where we talk to church leaders about how to minister to people in pre-Christian culture, in a culture that people don't really know much about church, Jesus, and faith. And we are super excited, Marco, today because we have a special guest.
We're joined by a Gen Zer. I feel like a researcher in a laboratory.
This is very exciting, everybody.
But this Gen Zer has a name. Caroline, welcome. We're so glad that you're here with us.
Thank you.
We already know it's going to be a great conversation because Caroline,
we know Caroline.
Caroline's great. She went to Harvard. So this is just like elevated the intelligence of the podcast like 10x, which is great. But she's also just a wonderful person, a deep faith, and someone that we just really enjoy having conversation with. So welcome, Caroline.
Oh my gosh, that's an amazing intro. Can you guys come around with me everywhere and just introduce
Absolutely.
me?
We'll be happy to do it. Caroline, so over the last few weeks, we talked a little bit about summer as a season of engagement.
Yeah.
And our whole idea is that, years ago in the church's mind, summer was like a dead season. You went on vacation, you did nothing. The parishes had nothing except for messes, maybe one or two picnics. And what we are saying is, no matter where you are, whether you're in a large city like Chicago or a small village, there's new people coming. There's this new energy, especially in the places that have seasons, 4 seasons. And so use this as an opportunity to engage. What would you say to people around summer engagement?
Completely agree with your take. So for me, I always think of summer as kind of the best time to engage people in any kind of new activity, actually, because there's this whole idea of, as the world's coming back to life, kind of we feel like we're coming back to life a little bit too. And I've just noticed that the number of people who are open to trying something new, joining any kind of group or club, making new friends, all of that kind of sparks with the spring and the early summer. So being able to get in on that initial energy is so important. And I actually think it's a little bit akin to this idea of cuffing season.
What in the world is cuffing season? I didn't bring my Gen Z dictionary.
So cuffing season is such a hilarious idea to me, but it's so true. I've seen it actually happen, which is a lot of people, when they're dating, they start dating someone in the fall, and then they'll usually keep dating that person through the winter. And then there tend to be a lot of breakups around like April or May. And the first time that I saw this, I thought it was so weird. And so much of it is everyone goes into, especially in Chicago, goes into hibernation for a little bit of the winter period. You just hang out with kind of your group. You stay home,
Correct. You
read, you watch TV. But then the spring comes out and everyone's like, oh yeah, there's a wider world out there that I want to explore. So I think that the church needs to jump on cuffing season, basically.
Love it. Just learned something new in the first 2 minutes of this podcast.
Well, that's
Thanks
good
for sharing that.
But the other interesting thing, Caroline, you're making these observations obviously as a young person, but you're also trained in I don't want to say like anthropological, sociological, like understanding people, right? As a research factor for a lot of what you do, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So yeah, I work as a product manager in my not free time. And it has so much to do actually with my history degree, which I think is hilarious. But both of them are focused on trying to understand people in groups and understand particularly their motives and kind of how they communicate with each other and how they explain what they need and get what they need and get together to build things. Yeah. And that has been just like a total fascination of mine since I was little. And there's so much within the church that I think like bringing that lens is just absolutely critical, because one thing that St. Clement does really amazingly, I think, is kind of identify people who have a lot of energy and spirit and give them autonomy and kind of let them go out and do kind of build their own things. And so I've seen that work so well in the tech world as well. And St. Clement feels a lot like a startup to me in that sense, where I think that is, from what I've kind of seen from history and in my job, that's one of the most effective ways that exist to kind of build a movement and build a community that people want to join, is to give people as much freedom as possible to be who they really are, explore who they are, and use their gifts and feel like they're giving back.
Could you talk a little bit about why you think that type of disposition as a parish and as a church matters in this current moment, right? So kind of put back your Gen Z or young person hat. Like, what is it that the people in your generation are looking for today? And why do you think a parish needs to be open to the idea of thinking in new ways?
I'm so glad you asked me this question, because I have so many thoughts on it. And I've been thinking about it for a while, because I've noticed that Gen Z is such a different generation, and that they don't join things the way that older generations do. So if you think of even kind of the simple idea of like a junior board, a lot of organizations like Catholic Charities, other organizations have junior boards. And up until recently, those were very well staffed. Those were like places where you would meet spouses, you would meet friends, you would spend a lot of your time. And a lot of kind of junior boards are foundering a little bit, I would say, from my experience. And I think so much of that is that Gen Z is in this weird place where they have a lot to give, they want to offer something, but they're kind of overwhelmed with choice, like especially in a world where there's so much you can do online as well. And so they're a little bit checked out from that sense of, they don't feel like there are those clear paths like junior boards or other clear paths that all these earlier generations felt like they had. And I think a lot of that, again, is like the proliferation of choice, because it used to be you move to a city, there's 2 cool junior boards to join, you meet all the cool people, and you're off to the races. And now one of the enormous benefits of the internet and kind of the growing technology that way is there's so many different types of communities and places you can join. But what happens, I think, is people get totally overwhelmed. They try 16, they never go back to any of them, and then they sit in their apartment and like, why am I so lonely? And that's a hard and unique problem that I don't think earlier generations have faced yet.
And I remember, something that obviously came up in the research that you've done for us here at St. Clement, just around engaging young adults. So one of the problems we were trying to solve here at St. Clement is that, let's say we have 300 people at Alpha course, and only about 30% of them would continue into other options, and we have multiple options. And we couldn't quite understand it, because there were good options and great speakers, great opportunities, and yet 70% of the people would not lean in. So we brainstormed with Caroline, and she did the survey of over 100 people and interview people and talk to people. And we came up with some really great findings that I think might help other churches to think about how to engage Gen Zs.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed that survey so much. It was really, really cool. Just a quick side note on how we did it. We actually put up a table outside church and made people fill out paper and pencil surveys.
Yes, you did.
And so much of the reason
And you
for
had
that,
cookies for them.
I did. I gave them cookies. We ran out of cookies at the last mass, and a lot of the guys were really bummed, but that's okay. They'll get cookies at some point. But the reason for the pen and paper is I also think with those types of surveys, it's so important to catch the people that you wouldn't otherwise catch. Because with a digital survey, like people who are self-motivated are going to click. And a lot of my goal in standing outside of church was trying to grab some of the people that were rushing right out, or some of the people that were like by themselves, to kind of get that full picture of what people are looking for. So that's one recommendation I have to any parish or church. Is
brilliant.
Try to pull those people that are kind of like lurking in the corner. Because one of our findings from the survey that was so amazing was that even those lurkers, even the people that aren't engaged, they had such positive things to say about Clement, and they wanted to be more involved. I was not expecting that. I thought we would have a fair amount of people who were like, I'm good. This is my right amount of commitment. And I think like some of the big takeaways on why they wanted to be involved but weren't had to do with anxiety and stress about not knowing where they fit in and not knowing how to get started. And I think we forget too that for Gen Z in particular, they grew up in this world where they're being watched all the time. Like they've got social media, everything's being filmed, every single thing you say online could like blow up and go viral and you could get canceled. And they just grew up in this environment where like I think they learned to be a lot quieter than previous generations. And so that was such a learning for me because I'm rather a loud person. So if I want to get involved, I will. I'll just dive right in. And I think for Gen Z, for a bigger portion of them, that's harder than you would think. And so those personal invitations, those pathways saying like, this is what you do, and then you do this, and then you do this next, they are craving that because it's a little bit harder for them to take that first step themselves.
I think about it, I don't know, maybe I'm just because it's almost lunchtime, but I think about it, the difference when you go to Chipotle, right? And you can pick from 3 things, and there's literally a line, and it's very easy.
Yeah.
As opposed to when you go to, a Chinese restaurant and there's literally a menu that's like 10 pages long and you're overwhelmed by choice.
Yes.
And I think what you're saying is there's the proliferation of choice, not just in options, but also in the speed. It's just so overwhelming that you're paralyzed, right? And I even feel that I'm not a Gen Z, I'm a millennial. I can only imagine what it must be like to come to a new city and have all of these opportunities, right? Because what he's saying is like there's endless opportunities for you to find friends or connect, but the fact that you can't find the one probably makes you feel really bad, that you're then saying it's not actually them, it's me that's the problem.
Totally.
Right? And then so you're just going to retreat into your mind and into your own life. And I mean, I've remember being around people, especially as we were coming out of COVID, that hadn't talked to anyone for a year and a half. And I think for many people, that's kind of continued, right? Like, I think a lot of people, young people today, may have connections and relationships, but it's not deep. And I think that's what people are really craving for, is authentic, meaningful community where people are seen and known. And I think that in many ways, that's what a parish really should be striving to create space for them.
Oh, I completely agree. I think that level of kind of quality in relationships and in organizations and in places to meet people is so lacking. Like I think, to go back to your metaphor, it's feeling a little bit for young people like everything is Chipotle and there's nowhere to get like a healthy meal, And so, not saying Chipotle isn't healthy in some contexts, but and I think that quality is so incredibly difficult to find, especially in a world really overpopulated with choices and where so many of the choices look the same. And so that brings me back to one other finding from our survey that I found absolutely fascinating. 25% of people who came to Clement came at least partially just because they liked how it looked. Like they walked by it, they saw a sign, something like that, and they were like, I like this. And I think in our current world, sometimes we focus so much on digital outreach and using all the right tools and stuff like that. And we forget some of the basic things of like, this just looks like a nice church. These people are talking to each other. Like they have donuts over there. And so just kind of...
How bad could that be?
Exactly. Just kind of the value of just running your parish life exactly how it is already and just like making it look like the beautiful place that it is,
Caroline, 2 things that I would like to briefly touch on that I think you do that help to foster community and help us to involve more young people is first, you do things that you believe will help other people to experience who Jesus is, how Jesus is at work. I remember last year you kind of led the mental health rosary, just an opportunity for people to stop by in October, in the month dedicated to rosary, and say, hey, why don't we just, this old prayer of the church, and pray for the healing. And secondly is, your ministry as a sacristan and your brilliant recruiting tactic that I think has to do with how, again, Gen Zs are reacting to it. Would you talk a little bit about those two? Because first is, I think for young adult leaders, it's really important for them to hear as a young adult, you have a place to lead in the church.
Totally.
And secondly is you have this brilliant insight into saying you want more young adults to be sacristans, lectors, you name it. This is what you do.
Oh, I love that. Yes, absolutely. So it's so interesting you pair those two experiences too, because I think the first one taught me a lot about what to do with the second one. So for the first one, I wanted to lead a mental health rosary because I had read something about how just like repetitive prayer can be so helpful when you're going through a tough time. And Gen Z is kind of in a place where they are facing a lot of mental health issues. And so much of the time too, if you're facing a mental health issue, everyone's always pushing you to talk about it. Sometimes you don't want to talk about it. You just want to do something to distract you. And so the rosary is such a powerful tool to kind of meditate and like be able to not think too hard and just like be at one with yourself and with God, which is lovely. One of the things I took away from it though was that like we definitely had a couple people that came and that really, really loved it. We did kind of a broader outreach with it where we like put things in the newsletter, but I don't think I invited that many people personally saying, I think this would be good for you. And that can be hard because it was mentally health focused, but I didn't have that personal invitation part as much. Whereas as a sacristan, I love it so much. Being a sacristan is just so amazing because it has taught me so much about the Mass. It has given me so much respect for the Mass. It allows me to be more present in the Mass and to just feel like I'm really giving back to a community that's given me so much. But the way that I've gone about recruiting for this is picking out specific people that I think would be good sacristans. And the difference, and Father Peter, you do this amazingly, I've stolen it a little bit from you, of going up to someone and saying, you have such great attention to detail and you're such a thoughtful person. I think you would be a good sacristan. Because getting that kind of personalized invitation, one, you feel seen, just like you were mentioning. Like this person knows me, they've noticed these qualities about me. And then the way we train for sacristans too is I take them around with me during a Mass and I teach them all the different things. And so it's an opportunity for me to bond one-on-one with other young adults and other parishioners. And so it kind of builds up that community a little bit. So the importance of like those one-on-one invitations and noticing specific qualities about people where you think they'd fit somewhere is so valuable.
And this whole idea, right, of accompaniment, which I think it's so critically important that the research talks about, is that, there's all those words describing Gen Zs, the most open generation, they're creative, they're looking for goodness, but also they are overwhelmed and flaky at the same time. And I think part of that flakiness is the fact that people are just overwhelmed a lot of times and there's nobody who will personally accompany them. And I think your technique of kind of saying you have the right skills, but we will not just tell you that, and smile and say, off you go, but I will accompany you for as long as necessary to really make sure that you are really owning it and you feel good about it. I think that's just a brilliant thing you do because then again, people stay connected then.
Yes, definitely. And I love that because I've also checked in on a couple of the new sacristans during their first couple Masses. So I'll be at Mass and I'll just pop into the back for a second and say, do you need anything? Because those first couple Masses, you're so nervous. You're so nervous. And so just having someone that you can text with a question, I've gotten a couple like text questions of what do I do with this and stuff like that. It just makes it feel so much less pressure, right? So yeah, that accompaniment piece is huge.
So Caroline, for churches like St. Clement that are in the cities that have a lot of young adults, if you were to give those churches, parish leaders, kind of a 3 words of advice, what would you say? Where would you say they should start?
Ooh. I think the advice I would want to give is a little counterintuitive, which is I think that they should look for opportunities to give their Gen Zers and young adults more responsibility. I think because Gen Zers tend to be so flaky, everyone is a little nervous to give them any type of responsibility, which makes a ton of sense. It's super annoying when they don't show up. But sometimes responsibility builds non-flakiness like the other way. And I think actually giving them responsibility and letting them see that it really matters what they do, like that if they don't show up, something doesn't get done, that builds a bond and builds a sense of like being needed, which I think they're really looking for actually. And they have so many skills and talents, just like the rest of us, where if they're kind of given that responsibility and then left alone with it, some will fail for sure, but some will really get invested.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. I mean, I don't know about you, Marco, but I'm like, can we just do a whole series with Caroline about understanding it? So stay tuned for the fall, because we are bringing you back, Caroline, to talk a little bit more. And actually, I have incredible, if you're in Chicago, you're listening to us, Caroline will be leading our beta course on Holy Rebels. It's on saints. And we are so excited about it because I think it will be an incredible opportunity for everybody, including young people, to kind of rediscover the power of saints.
Oh my gosh, yes, please come. I am unbelievably excited about it. And I'll just throw out this little pitch. There will be activities and there will be prizes. And the prizes are pretty cool. So
awesome.
Wow. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This has been delightful.
And Marco, what's next for us?
So what's next? We're going to jump into fall and a little bit of how summer can lead into fall. And we want to talk to you as leaders and in conversation with some other folks that will join us about how to really think about that jump from summer to fall.
We cannot wait to see you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.